more than half of American workers don't even have access to an employer-sponsored retirement fund. That's according to a new study by the Economic Innovation Group, which examines how access to employer-sponsored plans differ from state to state. Here with us now to talk a little bit more about the study and the findings is Benjamin Glassner. He's an associate economist with the Economic Innovation Group. Thank you so much for joining us. I hate to say this, but it kind of didn't surprise me.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like this has these offerings have been kind of being scaled back more and more over time, and also, you know, various other retirement funds with the lack of union jobs. There's fewer and fewer union jobs as well. But let's talk about this kind of retirement opportunity. Why is there such variance or variability from state to state when it comes to access to employer-sponsored retirement plans?
I think we see a lot of variation across states based mostly on what types of jobs are available and where people are finding themselves working. Most of this really comes down to who does have access via their employer and the type of jobs that we find most likely to offer those new types of plans relative to fixed benefit plans of the past. So if you're finding yourself falling into a job that doesn't have that available employer-provided retirement plan, you're really going to have a difficult time getting access to it as you move from job to job, even within those states.
Was there anything that you found surprising in the regional divides from state to state or even region?
Yeah, one of the things that I was really particularly surprised about was the diversity of states, particularly across political alignment, that really struggled to show access among low-income workers. We ended up seeing both Florida and California as the two states with the lowest rates of access for low-income workers, and roughly about 5.5 million low-income workers between the two of them didn't have access. So we didn't see this as much of a red v. blue divide in access, but much more of a general problem that we see that is really a national issue.
Benjamin, when I saw that map, I wondered if it had to do with the types of jobs. Particularly, I was thinking about farm workers when I saw California and Florida. Is that part of, you know, the reason we see such a range?
Yeah, that's absolutely going to be a factor in it. We're talking mostly about low-income workers or workers in general who are going to be spread across a variety of different types of employment. And with the current system and the way that we think about it today, we do see divisions across industries and types of work for people who do or don't have access to employer-provided retirement plans. That's one of the motivating factors for some new work that's being put towards bipartisan legislation to improve access to retirement planning support policies in general. So we want to think about what are the tools we can use to start spreading access to these types of plans, because that's the first layer of issue that many of these workers are going to be facing.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the access, but what part does education, financial literacy, you know, you see these lower income Americans who are offered employee-sponsored plans, but then they're not likely to participate. How do we bridge that gap? Is it financial literacy? Is it financial education?
You know, when I saw that part of the study, I thought, like, I kind of understand, because I remember when I was 20 years old and someone said, there's this plan here, all you got to do is give up a percentage of your income. And at the time I thought, I can't give up 1 cent.
Yeah.
I need every cent to pay my bills.
I mean, is there any bridge available?
Well, that's a great point, because one of the things that we've usually been finding in this literature and in the studies on these topics is that even when people in lower income groups and in lower income quantiles of the wage distribution get access to these plans, they have a really difficult time actually allocating money to them. And that's not necessarily just because of a lack of financial literacy. A lot of it really is rational decision making among those low income households who are looking at, do I spend $1 today on groceries or do I try and save it for tomorrow? And when you look at the types of incentive structures that we have for most employer-provided retirement plans today, that dollar value of savings is really hard to trade off. So we don't want to think about it just as they don't understand that the savings opportunities are there. They're really going to have a tough time allocating it, particularly as costs for living expenses have gotten so much tighter in recent years.
Yeah, and you know, in some cases too, when you have an employer match, we're talking about free money that you're like giving up, you know. But it took me a while to get that as well.
But it costs money to make money.
Yeah, that's so true. So then, you know, what are the long-term implications? We have, you know, a population that continues to age without enough retirement savings. I mean, what could the outcome be? No retirement, I guess.
It really is concerning. Yeah, it's a concerning picture at the moment, because if you think about where those families and households that haven't been able to save for retirement are going to end up, if you find yourself entering retirement and you don't have enough, you're going to need to lean on more of those social supports, family networks. You have children, you might be more likely to be moving in with them. And this starts putting long-term constraints both on the spending of that individual entering retirement. They're going to have to cut back their budget. They're going to have to reframe what they think retirement is for them. but also in the households that are going to have to accommodate those people. So if you're supporting your parent who's entering retirement, you're going to have less money potentially to allocate toward the down payment. It's going to impact family planning. So there's lots of these tie-on effects of what it means to not have adequate planning for retirement across all of these groups, both high and low income individuals.
Or you're just going to see people not retiring, which is something you see. Grandma and grandpa will keep the full-time job. It's an interesting study. Benjamin, thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.